Welcome. My name is Stephan Schomberg. I work for a company called Levotech. We're out of Toronto, Canada. And today I'm going to chat a little bit about choosing an implementation partner. Really going to go through some implementation sort of techniques and things that are important that we should look for as we're choosing partners. So I'll just get started. It's about a 30-minute presentation, so let's get going. Okay, somebody told me a long time ago, always check the source of information before you accept or share it. So I like to throw a slide up about myself just to say that I've been doing this for a long time. I've done a lot of different industries, everything from bagels to airplanes. And I'm both an expert and certified in both Infor ERP and Hexagon EAM. And I've worked with a lot of big companies over the years, and so I kind of know the subject matter, so that's why I want to throw that slide up. Okay, so like I said, we're just going to talk a little bit about asset management implementations, sort of more the do's than the don'ts. But the group of implementers in this arena that we have here today are all really top quality implementers. So a lot of them have these same conditions. This isn't a sales pitch for my company. This is just a general discussion on implementations and solution partnering. And most of the people that are here all follow these types of things. Okay, so who's Levotech? So like I said, we're from Canada. We're a proud solutions partner and channel partner for both Infor and Hexagon. We've been involved with them for quite a while with both of them. As far as, we do Hexagon EAM, we do Infor LN, CSIE, which is Cloud Suite Industrial Enterprise. We're also, we have certified burst business intelligence people that can connect burst to your ERP or your EAM for improved intelligence. And our name really came from enable, evolve, and elevate. So that's how Levotech came to be. That's our sort of our catchphrase. Okay, so when we talk about providing solutions, we sometimes break it down. We think about it in two sort of categories of implementers, right? We have the implementer that's a good support implementer. So you tell them, I need you to help me with this, this, and this, and they will do those tasks. And then we have what we call a solution provider, which works more in depth with you, and it can help you entrench those solutions in your organization. And sometimes that involves saying no, because it's not always about agreeing with the customer and saying, okay, whatever you want, that's what we're going to do. Sometimes it's making those hard conversations to explain, well, that's really good, but this could be better if we did these slight adjustments to that plan. So I think that's where we kind of break up the two types. So the implementation partner that's sort of task-driven, and then there's a solution provider who's actually helping you navigate through the whole process. Okay? And when we talk about solutions, it can involve things like determining how to improve, even choosing an application, okay? Implementing some best practices, solving unrelated issues. And I have a slide on that later about a project about unrelated issues. But staying until the job's done and supporting the organization long term. There's a big difference between entrenching information and just implementing it, okay? And I firmly believe this last statement, that choosing the right solution partner is more important than choosing the right software. Software in general, they do several similar things, but the difference could be in how it's actually implemented. Okay? So providing solutions. So what are some of the important things to consider? I think a good solution partner understands your business processes and understands people and change management. Okay? We immediately think of, a good implementation partner knows the software and knows maintenance, which is great, but then you also need to have business process understanding, you need to understand how to work with people, and they need to understand the change management process. And I'll have a slide about why that's so important in a minute. And that's the difference between implementing and entrenching. And the last statement's always scared me, but it's been true for over 20 years. that 85% of large implementations fail to achieve all the goals that they set out to achieve. And when you think about that statement, you think, how could that be true? We have so many implementation teams now, like big companies, Ernst & Young, Deloitte, all these companies. How can 85% fail? And I'll tell you, the reason is that 75% of the success of a project is how you deal with people and processes, and only 25% on how you deal with technology. So you can get the technology piece 100% right and still fail to achieve your goals because you haven't worked with the people or the processes correctly. So that's the big piece that you have to do to become successful, is work with people and processes more. Okay? So what we find is in the industry that a lot of the money, the timing, the planning, is all spent on software, hardware, systems, all those types of things, and less is spent on training, staff development, change management, and what we really need to do is put the proportions in the right order. So if you have a budget, 75%, you have to think about people and processes as your 75% of your budget, not just 75% for technology, and then whatever's left, we'll try to get it running, right? So it's a mindset. You have to realize where the importance is in success. Okay, and I think we need to, like on the people side, we need to consider that we're raising the bar on the workforce a lot, okay? A lot of times we have old systems, they're used to using Excel or they're used to using some old manual system. Now we're giving them an application like Hexagon EAM, sorry, keep getting the Infor part. Hexagon EAM, which is like the Cadillac, and now we're expecting them to all of a sudden just miraculously operate this Cadillac, right? So the resources are on a learning curve. We're adding additional processes data. There's usually an increase in accuracy focus. Okay, before, the paper was okay, scratch it out right over top. But now we've got accuracy because we have an enterprise system, so it's actually going down the line. Other people are using that information. Automatically raises the importance of the accuracy. Okay? Sometimes we have to train the people on basic business understanding. Like maybe I'm a maintenance planner, but I don't really know how to do maintenance planning, so now I've got to sort of educate them a little bit on how you do planning as well as use the software. So there's all these little things and all the legacy practices and what I always call is Excelzilla, because everybody has these giant Excel sheets that got everything programmed in them, and trying to peel that away from somebody is like chopping off his arm. You can't get him to let go of that Excel sheet. But all those things are troubling to the people. Okay, they've got all these things going through their head, and one of the things that's important is to people want to do a good job. Like if I'm a person working at a plant or I'm a maintenance guy, he wants to do a good job. He's not there thinking I'm going to just fluff through this stuff. So if we give him the tools and train him, he'll do a good job and he'll be a lot better for it, and so will the company. Okay? Now, one thing I found with working at a lot of manufacturing facilities especially is communication is so important. Like, to say what you're going to do and do what you say. It's very simple. Explain what you're going to do and then do that. If you go work with maintenance guys or manufacturing, they can pick out a phony miles away, right? You're telling them something, some technology crap, and and then you go do something different. You've lost them, right? Tell them in their own terms what you're going to do, and then stick with what you told them. Okay, and I always keep, I've done a lot of projects with large companies, big scale projects, but I like to keep the management tools simple. Obviously you need goals, definitions, scope, timing, deliverables, those types of things. But then I usually put a waterfall chart with basically phases and milestones, okay, just high level stuff on. Then I work with an agile approach for tasks. So within that chart, we use an agile tool to say, okay, here are the actual tasks that we're going to do, and we work on an agile basis. And then we get right down to weekly things like training. We use a calendar. So very simple, here's the calendar of that week, what we're going to do. Okay? So again, keeping it fairly simple, thinking of it from the perspective of I'm the person at the other end of it, I want to be able to understand it, okay? So I think that's really important. Regular meetings or scrum calls, if you're doing agile, are important. And again, everything coming back to communication. We run a RAID log, risk, actions, issues, and decisions. So we run a RAID log, so we review that weekly as well. And then we do go-live business planning and checklist and go-live evaluations and meetings, okay? So when we get closer to the point where we're actually going to go live, I got a slide on explaining that a little bit, but it's important to validate that you're ready, okay? This is one that I get a lot of times questions from maintenance people on is when I talk about standardizing processes and understanding business process and best practice, a lot of times I'll get maintenance people question me about that. Say, well, why do we really have to understand what the manufacturing, what the plant does and how the parts are made and all those types of things? We're the maintenance crew. Like, we're just going to go in and fix stuff, right? But it's really important because there's usually a handoff between maintenance and manufacturing, right? They have to work simultaneously and work together. And understanding for example, the customer decoupling point of the products you're manufacturing. Like, are you a make-to-stock environment? Are you an engineer-to-order environment? Is your business discrete or process-driven? Those are important decisions when you're setting up maintenance planning. Because if you have a process-driven business, that means that everything has to keep running all the way through. So I can't just stop this piece of equipment or that piece of equipment and do maintenance, because now it's affecting the entire process. So I have to understand, okay, it's process-driven, it's this type of business, I need to work with manufacturing, here are going to be my options. So having an understanding of that is really going to help you build your maintenance program. Okay? And then talk about standardizing processes. So whenever you inherit processes when you're doing an implementation, one of the things we always look at is what are the processes? Like, we have our standard maintenance processes like we use to, and if somebody doesn't have any, we give them those and we say, okay, let's take that as a baseline and work from that. But it's really important to do the process mapping, because what you'll find is that you'll find guys say, we always did it this way, we always did that, then that, then that. And we say, well, why do you do that third step? Well, I don't know, like, I was told that from the guy, and he was told that from the guy before him, and he was told that from the guy before. So we kind of start eliminating some of those non-value add process steps. And that's why, again, what I'm saying about communicating with them and being a little bit critical, asking questions like, why are you doing that? Why are you doing this, right? And making sure that you end up with a standardized and simplified process. The other aspect that in dealing with people is change management. Now, a lot of organizations have different levels of maturity when it comes to change management. If you're working with a very large company, they may even have a change management agent that works at the company that wants to be involved in your project. So you have to incorporate that into your project. Other times, if we just want to touch on a few change management things as we're going through the project. But I think it's always good to have some sort of a plan for change management at the start. Whether it's very simple or whether it's very complex, it depends, again, on the maturity, but the important factors here are, and this is one that we just happen to use, is the ADKAR approach, but it's part of that communication as well. You have to let them understand, be aware of what's happening, what's the change happening, because everybody wants to know what's in it for me. Like, if I'm changing the way I'm doing things, how's that going to benefit me, right? So you want to communicate, here's what we're doing. We're taking this and we're going to go to here. This is going to help you in these ways. So we're going to create some awareness there. If we do a good job of awareness, we're going to have some desire. So people want to be on our project. We won't have to go, we don't have to go beg people to be on the project to do things, or we won't get the worst people because that's all they can afford to give us. We're going to get actually people that want to be on your project because they're going to say, hey, that's going to add value to the company. I want to be part of that, okay? And then we give them the knowledge to help them with the process, which turns into ability. And then when people have ability and they're feeling good about it, they become your best communicators. So you have internal people now also communicating positively about the project, okay? That makes it go a lot smoother internally, okay? And then reinforcement, like, this is the one that everybody kind of leaves off. Well, we're not going to give them something because they did their job. Like, we're not going to reinforce them or give them a bonus or whatever. I said it doesn't have to be anything fancy. It could be as simple as giving them a certificate that says, you've successfully passed all the training and you're certified in EAM. Sometimes that is, hey, I've got the certificate. I actually accomplished something. Sometimes that's enough. Oh, I got the slide in twice. Okay. Must be an important slide. Okay, this slide pertains a little more to larger organizations, but what we'd like to do when you're doing multiple site rollouts, for example, of a product, is involve the change management and the training calendars together. So milestones that you would have in your training lining up with change management. Okay, so change management's involved. They're anticipating the training, and they're working with you to move the change management at the same pace as the upcoming training. Okay, this is a little more complicated in the sense that you have to have somebody manage. It has to usually be a larger company because you have to somebody manage this connection with change management training. But small aspects of this are still very important to do. I know I'm talking very quickly here, so I apologize if I'm going a little too quickly. But and training, we normally look at it from 4 different aspects, and this is what we found has been successful, is having first an overview, so explaining to people the inputs and the outputs of something. So if you're training an individual that's working in let's say a stock area or something, explaining to them, the inputs and the outputs of that function, then doing a working demonstration inside the system, so explaining again, showing them exactly, okay, you're going to be doing this is the result you're going to get, and then having them actually go on, do hands-on themselves, like in an environment with real-life data, so not widgets, but stuff they understand, let them go through and actually do it. And then the other part we do is we leverage the users in all the testing, because what we find is that repetition of them helping with testing, like we have test exercises, so they're going through and they're moving, let's say transferring items back and forth. So they're going through and doing that over and over and over again in the testing. That reinforces their training, and then when it comes to actually doing it, well, I've done it like 15 times already because I've been testing it. I mentioned earlier about the process flows or the workflows. We have a standard set of those, but like most people either have their own SOPs or whatever they're currently using. So we sort of take them, we do an analysis of their SOPs, because there's a best practice, right? And most companies want to get closer to best practice. So if the best practice is to do this, this, and this, and they're actually missing a step, maybe they need to incorporate another step in there, or maybe they need to remove a step. So we kind of map against best practice, and then we determine with them what fits their organization the best, okay? And then we take that and we build use cases around those, so that we say, okay, so if that's the process, give us a good use case so we can actually test that and make sure the software is functioning exactly the way we need it. And then we found the most successful part about training is to do a role-based model. So instead of training sort of everybody how to do everything or everybody how to do a certain thing, we sort of broke it into roles. So in the maintenance, we usually have 4 major roles, right? So we have the approvers or supervisors, who they have to have a little more functionality. They have to be able to do a little more status updates and things like that. So we explain to them their role. Planner scheduler, again, is slightly different from that. They have to have certain things in their role. Your technicians or your operators, they will have different functionality, different roles, maybe mobile app that they have to use. So their training is set up a little differently. And then the system administrator in some places has to know everything. Other places, they just need to know how to manage the application and do the reports and data spies, et cetera. So, but we usually break it into 4 separate roles. There may be additional ones, or there may be, but those are usually the 4 that are everywhere. And then as far as, I was talking about providing solutions. So I think one of the things we have to think about when we're providing training is that everybody doesn't fit the same way into training. we have instructor-led. We do some instructor-led training, which is good. We have some exercise stuff where people can sort of run through themselves and learn things. We have some different job aids and different tools we use to help people with training. And then if we really need to, we can do like a one-on-one white glove training so people can, if you're talking to an administrator, you may only have one administrator in the company, but you want to make sure they're well trained, so we do a white glove or hands-on one-on-one. And the other thing we have to think about nowadays is being able to do remote training. During COVID, we were actually able to implement a company in Texas. We never went there. Not through the whole implementation. We did the entire training and go live remote through Teams. So, and they're running successfully. We've actually done a couple update things for them, but having the versatility to be able to say, okay, we have some online stuff. Okay, so if you need to go through Teams, we can do Teams training. We can do instructor-led through Teams training if you want, or things like that. I think a good partner figures out those extra things that they can help the person with, because you can't always show up in person for everything, even though that's preferred. Like, we like going there too, but it just doesn't work all the time. So have options. Okay, testing. I mentioned a little bit about using the users for testing. And I think that's, like, we have a tool called Test Lodge, where we can actually put all the exercises in, and then the person can go into the tool and just follow the instructions, follow the exercises inside of EAM, and then they can make notes if they see something that's not quite right, and it'll check off that they completed the test, and it'll track, if we've given them 10 tests, it'll track where they are in the 10 tests. Sort of like the Hexagon EAM training thing, where you get that little training exercises. Well, this is similar, but it's for testing. And the good thing about that, again, is it inspires more repetition and helps us with understanding if there's something missing in the training. So we usually do a few rounds of testing. So we have obviously a unit test. So this is usually carried out by the project team, where we go through everything in the test environment, make sure everything's actually working, and anything that we've built is working. So like data spies, reports, KPIs, or whatever we're doing in there, we just validate that that's all working. And then once we validate all that, we let the key users and some of the main people that are on the project from the customer side to actually go in and start using it as well and testing it. And then we do some gap analysis and some fixes if they notice something that they'd rather have, or in most cases, they want to change it a little bit. Oh yeah, we said that, but really, give us that, So we do some of that. And then we end up doing more of a UAT at the end of it all, where we actually do user acceptance testing. Once we're comfortable that we've done the gap fit, that the users have been on it, and we're comfortable, then we do a UAT. Okay, I mentioned that back in the beginning about sometimes solution partners have to solve problems. Well, we were at a customer site, and we get to the point where we're going to start putting the parts in the inventory into the system. And they go, well, we're way behind. We haven't got our parts labeled. We don't have parts inventoried. So I know some implementation people would say, well, how long is it going to take? And well, it's a month or two. Okay, call us in a month or two, and we'll come back and finish the implementation, right? But we said, okay, we don't want to wait a month or two. So how can we help you with that? So we ended up finding 2 local resources to go in to the company and help them label and do the inventory so that we could continue with the project while they were doing all this labeling. And it actually worked out really well. One of the ladies that we brought in, we actually trained her, and she's helping us with consulting now on EAM, because she learned how to do all the scanning, mobile devices, put the barcodes on, scan them in, take pictures, add them to the parts, and so it was kind of a win-win afterwards. The next few slides are really going to talk a little bit more about multi-site stuff, because I think we're all sort of familiar with, okay, we have one location, pretty straightforward, go in there, figure it all out, implement, help them get started, and away we go. When you have multi-sites, and Joe and I worked on one where there was 110 locations. we never got finished, but anyhow, I'll tell you a bit of that story in a minute. But when you start looking at stuff like that, it's kind of, your brain kind of scrambles for a second until you're trying to figure out, okay, how do you do this? So we created a plant readiness approach. So basically, it's basically understanding the readiness of each of the locations in order to help sequence them. Okay, so a lot of what we understood was, if a plant is operating in an old system and their inventory is accurate, their accounting's good, they're managing it well in the old system, chances are they'll also be managing it better in the new system. So we sort of did some analysis on these locations to say, okay, which ones are managing correctly, and then we sort of ranked them as far as how we would do the rollout. Okay, so we had a little bit of control over how we did that. So we worked with the head office to make sure they understood what our methodology was there. Okay, and other things to consider were the business goals themselves. Like, a lot of times you'll have product launches at facilities. You'll have other things that are interfering with your rollout. So you have to be able to negotiate sort of how that's going to play out and how that sequencing works. One of the things that we learned from that process is that your goals should be in stone, but your plan can be in sand. So the goal is to get them all implemented successfully, but how we get there, we can probably change that a little bit. So we adopted an agile approach where we can, if we come across a site that, let's say they were third on the list, but they're not ready, we had to figure it out so we can jump to site 4 and come back and do 3. So again, the pre-work we did to analyze really helped us in being able to adjust on the fly. And what we ended up doing was, in order to shorten the length, imagine doing a lot of locations, you're thinking, well, that's going to take 10 years to do that, right? Because you're doing one after the other. So what we did is we kind of staggered them. So while we were going live in one plant, another plant was doing training, and another plant was making sure their data was all created correctly. So we had a staggered approach, so we were doing multiple plants at the same time in different aspects. So, like I say, go live, training plant, data plant. The data plant would move to the training plant, then to go live plant. We'd have them all sort of staggered going like this. So the plan ended up with 3 implementation teams that were kind of moving these things across. And the other thing that we're big on is having that base of that meeting, that go meeting, right? So talk about training evaluation. Are the people trained? Are they ready? Do we have the right cutover steps, and are we prepared to do it? We do a checklist of all the things that we have to look at when we cut over, okay? Do we have that? Getting a go decision. And I always get, people always question me, how come you always get a go decision? And I said, because I always have a pre-meeting to understand if it's not going to be a go. And then what I'll do is I'll move the go meeting if it's not right. So I kind of cheat a little bit there, but it's important to have that go evaluation and that go meeting. And the importance of validating the implementation, okay? So I was always a big proponent of you can't manage what you don't measure. And that goes true for just about everything we do, right? If we're not measuring it, we can't really manage it. So what's the importance of validating? Well, a common problem is that nobody verifies that the project deliverables were even met. They forget that we created this list of deliverables at the beginning. Now we're at the end. Somebody going back and going, did we actually accomplish all that stuff? And was the training really entrenched? Like, do we have any training issues? Are people that actually know what they're doing out there? So I think that's an important thing to do. And so during the project, there's a lot of different measurement techniques we're all familiar with, like net present value and all these types of things it teaches at PMI. But the bigger problem is after the project's over, most companies are just glad it's over, and they want to move on. Nobody wants to go back now and start measuring and thinking about stuff, but it is kind of important because if you're doing, like I said, multi-site rollouts, it's really important because you're going to have some stragglers in that group, and you need to be able to bring them back up to the same speed, right? So it's really important to measure afterwards. And when we talk about measurement criteria, like I said, I've done a few of these, but it should be based on the goals and the deliverables. It should be simple to understand, okay? It should be fair to everybody. So if I have 10 plants, I can't say, well, this plant, what the products they make are more important, so that has to be different. So it has to be fair, and it has to be publishable. So what we did was, we did a large bread factory, 24 sites, and actually about halfway through, we started measuring what we did prior and publishing. And we had a ranking system, so we checked, are they doing their work orders on time? What's their, how many PMs are late? We had our KPIs that we were measuring, and we published it. So we said plant A is the best plant right now. They have the best KPIs. Plant B, plant C, plant D. And anybody that was in the bottom, anybody that wasn't in the top 5, they got this funny kind of pinky red color on the chart. You wouldn't believe how fast we got calls from the other plants going, hey, can you help us with this? Can you help us with that? And they wanted to be up in the charts, right? So, I think that was really, really good. So the speed up to compliance was very fast. Like within 6 months, we had everybody in green in the compliance range. And again, these were kind of the insights that we found from that. Like when you start to measure after the implementations, you find out where's the additional training needed. Sometimes change management failed in a certain facility. And maybe there's a lack of commitment to the new process. Maybe the guys are reverting back to the old way they did it, right? They're doing the workarounds, Like I termed a phrase back quite a while ago, instead of a workaround, let's do a work through. So when people want to do a workaround, they say, because they want to do it because it's faster, right? So I said, instead of skipping things, let's figure out a work through. So let's figure out a simpler process to continue on the correct way. And what we've done is we've automated steps and some things like that, so it continues the right way, but it's faster to do. And then the overall attitude, like you'll find that somehow in the process you've lost people at one company and their attitude isn't good, and you have to work on that. Another thing with, again, I said some of these are about multiple sites, but everybody talks about, oh, this is a cookie cutter thing. You do it here and it just spread it out across everybody. We found there's really no such thing as cookie cutter because the main reason is there's different people at every location. So it's not so much that the process isn't cookie cutter, it's that the implementation isn't, because now I'm dealing with a whole different set of people. And we've implemented, like I said, across Canada, where we're into French Canada, so we're implementing in different languages, implementing in English and in French. So again, you have different cultures, different mindsets, different languages. So it's never completely cookie cutter. Like I said, everything is unique in some way. And then in other areas too, like I'm one of the older generation, as you can tell. Sometimes us older guys are harder to pick up things like mobile. I remember Joe and I actually did a thing down in Washington, D.C., training a bunch of young guys, and we were showing them how to use EM Mobile. And so I set aside, I had a group of mechanics, probably 8 of them, and I set aside a half an hour. So I get them in there, and I say, okay, you click on here, you do this, and 5 minutes in it, they're going, yeah, and what? No, I said, that's it. They go, that's it? Oh, okay. And I said, well, yeah, we got half an hour. Well, no, I got it. It was like a 5-minute lesson because they're so used to using mobile devices, phones, apps. They're like, oh yeah, I completely understand it. Page, click, click. So I think we have to. Whereas the older workforce, like we had people that didn't even have a cell phone. Believe it or not, we trained people, they didn't have a cell phone. So we said, oh, yeah, and they're looking at the computer like, where's the buttons, right? So there's quite a disparity. Okay, so like I said, I talk very quickly, but in summary, I think that the takeaways that I'd like you to remember is that 85% of implementations fail to achieve the goals. So I think we can all improve a little bit on understanding the people part of the equation, and understanding the business as well. I think is important for us maintenance people too, is to understand how does the actual factory operate, how does manufacturing work. If you have that understanding and work with manufacturing, it's a lot better relationship and for both. And yeah, I think I've said most of what's on there, but it's, we've developed some templated approaches to this as well as some of the other consulting companies that are here. I think that helps us initiate things faster because I talked about a lot of stuff. So imagine if you had to create all that material yourself, or if the customer thought they had to create all that material. So having those templated approaches, having some of those things pre-designed, like I said, the workflows, having these applications, like an agile app we use and a training and testing app. So having these other things helps the whole process. So as part of a good solution partner, you're going to want to work with the customer on those things. So I pounded through that pretty quick. I appreciate it. I'll take some questions if anybody wants to ask anything.
I do have one question.
Sure.
The templates part that you mentioned there at the end, what kind were those again? What kind of templates would you use?
Templates? Well, we have templates for a lot of different things. We have templates for uploading information. So we have a complete upload template for EAM for every table template, which we use with our customers to help them fill out information and upload. We have templates for all the business processes, the maintenance business processes. And we have some templates related to training and testing. We also use two tools that we just started using in the last couple of years. One is TestLodge, which I talked about, which we have a whole list of all the exercises for everything in EAM into TestLodge, and we just basically shove it over there and say, here, go through these tests. And then we use a tool called SuperDemo. SuperDemo is what we actually records you actually doing the exercises, so you can do like a live screen cam demo, and we use that for that. And we have a lot of those already. We have like a full curriculum of that already done as well, full video documented exercises too. Anybody else with a question? I think these presentations are available too. I think they're going to post them up somewhere, so people that came in a little later, you can probably get the presentations. So, okay, thanks very much.